The world of kayfabe. Stories within the wrestling world manifest themselves as true. Stories that include supernatural activity, horrifically tasteless events, and one time, a 77-year-old woman gave birth to a hand. Death, crime, and other powerful circumstances surround the wrestling industry, as told by the wrestling industry on weekly television and pay-per-view events. But how bad are these circumstances? That's where I come in, the purveyor of truth, to find out what is right and what is wrong in kayfabe.
Hi, and welcome to In Kayfabe. I'm your host, Micah. Joined here today is my very special guest, Derrick from the Specifically Devoid brand.
Hi, I'm Derrick from the Specifically Devoid brand.
So, Derrick, tell me, what is your first memory of being a wrestling fan?
My first memory of being a wrestling fan, in terms of actual television product, I would have to say, for some reason, I can very much remember this one specific promo before The Undertaker returned at some point, and it was in like the desert. There you go.
Death Valley, probably.
I'm assuming so. It's where he's from. How are you today, Micah?
Oh, pleasant as always. So, I have 2 to 3 scenarios. I have a past, a present, and a future, all relating to in kayfabe and the real world ramifications that these might bring. Now, these are not things like COVID-19 impacting the 2022 quarter 3 projections for WWE. These are just storyline things. This is all done tongue-in-cheek, and if you have a problem with that, give this a dislike.
Please do.
So the past I have for you, it's very famous on the night of Survivor Series 1999. Does that ring a bell, Derrick?
Survivor Series 99?
Survivor Series 99 was the build match between The Rock, Triple H, and Stone Cold Steve Austin until Stone Cold Steve Austin was run over by Rikishi.
Yes, I remember.
What a damning thing. So I've done research into this. This happened in Detroit, Michigan, or probably Pontiac, but it's happened in Detroit, Michigan. So Michigan law says attempted murder would get Rikishi 25 to life in prison. And because he did admit it, probably go down maybe a little bit, but he would get 25 to life in prison. That's not all Rikishi did, because Rikishi was just the man to do it. There was a conspiracy to do it. So also being charged, he would get another 25 to life in prison for the conspiracy to murder. And in addition to that, because of the admittance in Michigan, he would get fines up to $10,000. And I'm gonna guess that the car that he used get repossessed.
So let me ask you this question.
Okay.
Was the hitting Stone Cold Steve Austin with a car Rikishi trying to kill Stone Cold, or was it Rikishi simply trying to take Stone Cold out of action?
So here's the thing. Wrestling as wrestling is blood sport. Trying to win, trying to put somebody unconscious for 3 seconds or surprise somebody for 3 seconds. So every move, like a clothesline, you're trying to rip somebody's head off. A V trigger, you're trying to break somebody's nose or their face or their orbital bone. So to me, everything in wrestling is done with the attempt to seriously harm or injure in wrestling itself. So in in kayfabe, I believe Rikishi was trying to kill him because why would he want Stone Cold Steve Austin to come back eventually to have his comeuppance against Rikishi?
Well, Rikishi, as you know, he did it for The Rock.
Right.
And I'm assuming this meant to at least get Stone Cold out of the match. But knowing Rikishi and knowing the fact that inside of whatever fucking dark place he was in at this time, he was just this fun-loving guy who loves sticking his butt in people's faces and dancing around. This was very uncharacteristic for Rikishi, and I'm wondering if that part of him that loves dancing and loves shoving his butt in people's faces was still there and sort of wasn't attempting to murder Stone Cold because that he just couldn't get himself to do that.
So this is in 99. This is before all of his
Is it
Too Cool.
Is this before Too Cool?
100% it was.
This was almost directly before Too Cool, right?
Yeah. This was they were around the same time period. So I wouldn't say that he was the I wouldn't say that he was definitively the dancing butt Rikishi. I would say that this Rikishi is more of sinister villain.
Okay.
So this is not out of character.
This says, well, when was the reveal? When was his admittance?
His admittance.
Because his admittance could have been after all the Too Cool stuff. So it still is a key factor of Rikishi's character as a person.
So Austin returned in October of 2000.
Okay, so at this point, when he has admitted it, he has been a part of Too Cool, which means that part of him is still inside of him, regardless of if he had actually joined the group by this point.
See, I think police would look at what happened. Obviously, there is intent, but he intended to take Stone Cold out to Stone Cold's life so he wouldn't be able to compete anymore. I don't know this from personal experience. I don't think that you hit somebody with your car to just hit them to take them out for 6 months. I think you do that. There's a malicious intent there.
I mean, there's many reasons why someone could hit someone with a car. It could be an accident, like we've seen
This
on
was so clearly not an accident.
It was so clearly not an accident, but there could be a lot of motives for what you're trying to do with hit someone from a car. For example, it's still unclear from the December 24th, 2012 edition of Raw if Alberto Del Rio intentionally hit Santa Claus with his car or if it was an accident. But I think in court, this would be the biggest topic talked about, is what was the intention behind hitting Stone Cold with his car, and can you prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Rikishi was attempting to murder Stone Cold? Because if he wasn't, in court, that gets rid of all those charges. Rikishi's not guilty. And you'd have to imagine, right? This is Rikishi, member of the famed Anoa'i family. You'd have to believe that with his relationship to The Rock and to all of these great wrestling legends, that he'd have some great lawyer on hand. So I think you have to examine whether or not Rikishi intended to hurt Stone Cold or if he intended to murder Stone Cold.
Says that he was tired of WWE's relentless emphasis on the Great White Hope, citing various Caucasian world champions. So I think that he did it. I think that he did intend to kill Stone Cold Steve Austin to prove a point.
You think he intended to kill Stone Cold?
Yes.
Now, do you think Rikishi, with the character he had at the time as a person and who he is, do you think Rikishi would be stupid enough to kill someone to make a point on the wrestling show?
Yes.
You think he'd be stupid enough?
Yes.
I think, Actually, I think I'd have to agree with you on that one because he was stupid enough to just admit it flat
Right.
out.
Right. So on
And-
the verdict, if you're the swing vote of the jury, would you say that Rikishi deserves 2 sentences of 25 to life in prison, a $10,000 fine?
Can you read again the statement that you read just a moment ago from Rikishi?
I could say.
I'm putting myself in juror mind frame.
He said he did it because of WWE's, or at the time WWF's, relentless emphasis on the Great White Hope, citing names like Buddy Rogers, Bruno Sammartino, Bob Backlund, and Hulk Hogan. And that Samoan people had been held back in WWF, and he saw an opportunity to clear a path for The Rock to succeed.
Okay. If I am a juror and I am hearing that and I am on a murder trial,
Yes.
I think I would judging by his statement does sound like, with the additional part that you read, did sound like he was simply trying to make it easier for The Rock to win by taking Stone Cold out of the match.
Let's just break it down. Do you think he deserves 25 to life for attempted murder?
If I was a juror on an attempted murder charge, I would say not guilty.
Would you say conspiracy to murder?
I would say not guilty on conspiracy to murder.
Really?
On conspiracy to murder?
Well, yeah.
Not guilty on conspiracy to murder.
Okay, attempted vehicular homicide.
Vehicular homicide? I'd charge him guilty on that because he almost certainly hit Stone Cold with his car.
Okay, cool. We're in the present. This might date this a little bit, but one of the hottest angles right now in all of wrestling is Kenny Omega turning his back on All Elite Wrestling, reforming with so-called Uncle Don Callis.
Yes, the invisible hand.
Of course, the invisible hand. Now, Don Callis stated on the Impact Wrestling episode following the Winter is Coming episode that he helped Kenny Omega win, that this has been in the works for 27 years. My question for you, is Don Callis a warlock / psychic? Because that means that Don Callis would have to have known that all of these things would line up perfectly. That Kenny Omega at 10 years old would also become a wrestler. Not only a great wrestler, but one of the best wrestlers. He would have to have predicted the success of the Young Bucks to form with Kenny Omega. He would have to have known about the Elite and the Bullet Club. He would have to have known about All In and that success. He would have to have known about Tony Khan. He would have to have known that Dean Ambrose was leaving WWE to go there, because he had to plan this moment. He would have to have known that Kenny Omega was not going to initially beat Chris Jericho at the inaugural Double or Nothing event. He would also have to know that Kenny Omega wouldn't challenge for a very long time, because this was meticulously planned. So, is Don Callis a warlock / psychic?
I think if we're going back to the beginning, Don Callis, when Kenny Omega was 10 years old or around that time, Don Callis was trained by Kenny Omega's uncle, meaning that Don Callis probably knew that Kenny Omega was going to be a wrestler at some point.
Right.
Period. Now, this might come from me having watched a lot of Dragon Ball Super recently, but I feel like Don Callis could see at a very young age just the raw potential that Kenny Omega had, even from 10 years old, to be able to someday become the world champion of a promotion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Don Callis knew that when he was going to be in his older ages, like he is now, and not able to wrestle, he was going to have someone he could put all of his, like, all the eggs into the basket of.
Mm-hmm.
That being this young Kenny Omega.
Mm.
Now, I don't think he needed to know necessarily that the Young Bucks were going to start this promotion with all the elite people, with Cody, with Kenny, with Paige. I don't think he needed to know that, because I think Don Callis knew at some point Kenny Omega was going to be a world champion somewhere.
But he already was in New Japan.
Right. But Don Callis needed to find the right moment so he can make as much impact as he could. Yes, pun intended. I think with Don Callis' position in Impact Wrestling, I think it all fell into place. I think that's what Don Callis was waiting for, you know? He was waiting for the perfect moment, and sort of being in the COVID era and having two companies that are sort of stationed together and being able to use his connection to Kenny Omega to sort of finally set this plan into motion. He found the right time to use that to his benefit, which was COVID.
So then why would Don Callis turn on Kenny Omega in 2018?
Can you please remind me what this is?
So this was at, I don't want to say PWG, but let's just say it's at it's not at Ring of Honor or New Japan. And Don Callis cut a promo on Kenny Omega and turned on him, saying that Kenny is wasting away. And he turned heel on Kenny Omega, and he sicked some guys on him.
I mean, we've fallen for that before. That's happened plenty of times before. Someone fake turns heel on someone, and then, oh my God, it was all for show. Whoa, crazy. I'm pretty sure Tori Wilson did that like 20 times in her career.
Yeah, but this seemed more sinister. Like, this seemed like a thing.
Well, Don Callis and Kenny Omega, as is now apparent, are two pretty sinister people.
Yeah. So
Kenny was probably like, it's okay, Don, I can take it. Because let's be real, he can. He is double world champion currently for a reason.
It's true.
I think that Don Callis is trying to save himself with these promos, but I think this was all a big, clumsy, happy accident.
All right. And now a future possibility. What are the long-term ramifications to Sting wrestling again? We saw that Sting in the ring, it's quite its own thing. Very popular with the crowd, gets very big reactions, gets hurt. I mean, he got hurt in that Seth Rollins match. What are the kayfabe ramifications? Can he sustain a match? He can't go 25 minutes. Like, obviously, Chris Jericho, he's not as great a shape as he was, say, in 2007, but he is he can physically go for a very long time. We've seen that against Adam Page and Kenny Omega, MJF. Like, we've seen these long matches. Can Sting, with, like, stamina wise, keep up with somebody like Darby Allin or Brian Cage or Hook?
Absolutely not. Here's the thing. Sting, I'll keep using the Chris Jericho comparison because it's a good one. Sting is the difference between Sting and Jericho is that Jericho, even though he is now older and his body has gotten a little worse, he hasn't stopped wrestling. He's had little breaks, but it's been 5 years since Sting has wrestled a match. Sting has not wrestled since WWE Night of Champions 2015. And on top of that, Sting's a pretty old guy at this point. I don't know if it's a smart idea, considering that the last time he had a match, he got nearly paralyzed by a buckle bomb. I don't know if it's a smart idea for Sting to wrestle any match at this point, and I certainly don't think he'll be able to go against realistically anyone outside of a tag team match.
And so what are the benefits? Like, obviously the kayfabe benefits of beating somebody with the name of Sting with such the acclaim for somebody like a Brian Cage, a Powerhouse Hobbs, a Hook. It's very good, but why would then, say, Darby Allin team with somebody who would be such a liability like Sting? It would essentially be a handicap match if it were to be two members of Team Taz versus Darby Allin and Sting.
Well, Darby Allin, I think it is in his character to essentially give himself a handicap match against like Cage and Hobbs, because Darby Allin has shown time in and time out that he will do anything to win a match against any odds. And he is okay. He is okay with taking punishment. He is okay with pain. It's kind of concerning, but it's just who Darby Allin is. And I think, he goes, hey, what's the worst thing that could happen? Sting ends up being good still. I think for Darby, it's only a win-win situation for him, And so what if Darby ends up losing a handicap match between Brian Cage and Powerhouse Hobbs, or even like Ricky Starks and Hook? Like, what's the downside to losing a handicap match against those two? Because
in AEW, wins and losses matter.
Yes, but I how many handicap matches have there been in AEW history? I want to know if handicap match losses count the same as singles losses.
I think the only ones I can remember are Lance Archer on Dark.
Okay. I also want to bring up this point. This loss wouldn't fall under a loss for Darby Allin per se, because AEW keeps singles and tag records separately. So Darby Allin maybe would have an L on his tag team record since he's teaming with Sting, but it wouldn't affect his singles ranking, which isn't really matter right now because he's the TNT champion.
Correct.
As long as he keeps the belt, he's fine. He's in a good position.
But the liability, let's say then, out of Darby, Cody has as we've seen on the screen, really likes Sting.
Yes.
And Sting could care less about Cody.
Yes. So
if the two of them team, why would Cody want to team with him other than just to say that then? Because Cody fanboys over Sting on television.
I think you hit the nail on the head. He'd only want to do it so he can say he would team with Sting. I think Cody would be blinded by the star power that is Sting to realize that it's actually probably a shitty idea, because even if Sting can still go, Sting won't give a shit about the match he's wrestling in.
Oh, yeah. Because, I feel like my 93-year-old uncle could do a Scorpion death drop.
Oh, yeah.
That's almost nothing. That is falling on your back. But, I couldn't imagine taking a elevated suplex by Powerhouse Hobbs.
No.
And so 73-year-old Sting, or however old he is, could never.
Do you think Sting would allow himself to be in the ring with Hobbs if he was teaming with Cody? Why wouldn't he just let Cody do it?
Why would you be in a wrestling match if you didn't want to wrestle?
because the powers that be make you, and Cody is, one of the powers that be.
I don't like that answer, but we've run out of time, so I don't have time to defend. So thank you, Derrick, for being on. Join us next time and tweet us at Dying Format, at your boy D Harn, and at specifically Devoid, who you want to see on the next episode of In Kayfabe. Until next time,